Skipping Through Theatre podcast with Nathan and Maddie.
Hello and welcome back to another Skipping Through Theatre podcast. Today we are joined by James Payton.
Some of his credits include Captain America, the First Avenger, and Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, plus many more. We are so excited to have him on today's episode, so let's begin.
Hi James, we are very excited to have you on the podcast today. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks, Maddie. All right. How are you guys?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm good.
How did your journey into acting begin? Was there a moment you knew that this was like what you wanted to do and what you wanted to pursue?
Well, that's actually a story that I've probably told far too much. So there's a documentary on my life that is available on Amazon Prime called "Who is James Payton?" It follows me in a year of my life back in 2019.
Wow.
I tell this story there that back in 1988, in April, my father died, aged 41. I was 12 years old. And obviously a very difficult time. But back then, so he died in the morning, and I was sort of absent-mindedly watching television in the early afternoon. Now, this was back in the times when I think we had 4 channels, and if you wanted to change channels, you had to get up and physically change a channel. And I was absent-mindedly watching this film that was made or released 25 years before I was born, called what was it called? Francis. That's it, Francis, starring an actor called Donald O'Connor, who was in Singing in the Rain, the very famous dancing, make 'em laugh dance in Singing in the Rain. And it's about a talking donkey, a talking mule. And I'm sort of lost in my grief while this is playing. And I find myself laughing, and I had this epiphany, if you like, where I thought, God, how am I laughing when the worst thing in the world I can imagine has just happened to me? I want to do that. Now, I should add that I had an interest in sort of performing or showing off, as we used to call it, before that. But that was sort of looking back years later, I realized that was the moment that I thought, God, if I can make people feel something, take them away from whatever's happening in their lives, even if just for a moment, then that's got to be something worthwhile. So for me, that's when it started. And then, on the journey we went.
Yeah, that's lovely though, because like it really does show how much people get out of performing, because it is something that definitely does really, it takes you to another place, and it's so entertaining, and it must be so it's so much fun being part of that as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's obviously there is an element of work that goes into it that most people don't. What people see is what they see on the TV or the movies or wherever, but they don't see the work that goes into it prior to it happening. But actually, the work is fun because you're baking a cake, if you like. You're creating all these elements and things that you need to know and do and work on, so you can provide this hopefully tasty cake at the end of it. It's a real. I've been incredibly fortunate, but it's been an adventure along the way. But all of it's been fun in one way or another.
Yeah. So what's something about working in film and theatre that people might not expect?
I think certainly in sort of movies of any scale and TV shows of any scale is the sheer volume of people that it takes to make these things. Because the reality is TV shows and films do not wish to be born, but you have to force them out. It's sort of like when you get on the train of making a film or a TV show, and you have your very first day, the train is then running, and you have to keep up with the train. It's not going to stop. There are no stations. So I think people don't necessarily realize how much pre-production goes into things. What we do sort of on set is very much providing the ingredients for the editors and directors to make the cake in the edit. And also the sheer volume of waiting around to do your bit, which sort of brings another challenge of you having to very much be ready when they're ready. So I think that may be something that people don't necessarily realize, that it isn't all sort of show business parties and all that malarkey. It's very much waiting around. So everything is the dominoes are in place to fall, and you've got to make sure that you're ready when your domino is required.
there's so much that happens backstage as well. Like there's so much behind the scenes in actually creating a performance and uh just like acting, for example.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, from costume and makeup and props and art department and the director, the writers of the script, the other actors that you're working with, all of these, and the camera operators and the sound guys and all of these things. It's an awful lot to take in on your very first day if you know nothing about the process. But the reality is everybody's there on the payroll. Nobody's above anybody else, or they shouldn't be. And you are all working towards the same goal, which is to make this thing as good as it can possibly be. The reality is they coddle you in such a way to make you as relaxed as you can be for when it comes to your turn to do the acting lark. At least they should, because the reality is when you've got a camera in your face and 100 people waiting for you to get it right, and we're 10 minutes away from doing overtime, the pressure's on. But the more relaxed you are, I think in most fields, the more relaxed you are, the better you're going to be. If you if you feel under pressure and start getting in your own head about things, then that's not really terribly helpful. But if you're relaxed and you've done the work prior to being on the floor, on the set, then chances are you'll be fine.
And I've actually been in a few commercials, and the amount of people like behind like the scenes, like hundreds of people, it's like crazy.
Yeah, and that's just the ones that we see, Nathan. That's not necessarily including all the people who are involved in pre-production, who aren't necessarily on set but are in the offices and elsewhere. So yeah, well, as you well know, there are, I wouldn't say countless people, but there are many, many people and jobs that people don't necessarily know about, because it's not uncommon knowledge, but unless you have an interest, it's not particularly common knowledge.
So, if you weren't acting, what do you think you'd be doing?
I don't know. I don't know is my honest answer, Maddie. I've got no clue. Maybe I worked in the crew of many films, so maybe I'd still be doing that. But it was all, even during those times, it was always the goal to make enough money from performing, so I didn't have to do anything else. So yeah, I don't know. I think I hesitate to say it, but I may not have been here if I hadn't got as far as I have up to this point, and I'm fully aware that I may never work again. So the best piece of advice I ever got was from Anthony Hopkins, and he said to me, he said, "James, you're an actor, aren't you, James?" I said, "I am, Tony." Yeah. He said, all you have to do, James, is just keep going. That's it. Just keep going." And he was absolutely right. If you give up, then opportunities will never come your way. If you keep at it, then eventually you'll find yourself, through persistence and some luck and a lot of hard work, you'll find yourself in the way of luck, and opportunities will come. But if you stop doing it, then you close the door. So you just have to keep the door open and say yes, but also have the wit and wisdom to say no on occasion. Well, I mean, I shot for a day back in 2006, and I thought to myself, well, those would be nice. This is a big franchise. It might do something. But little did I know, here we are, sort of almost 20 years later, and I still, travel around the world. I still meet people who want to talk about Potter, and if you go to the new Epic Universe place in Florida, you'll see that Frank and Alice make a glorious return in the new show in Florida.
Yeah.
Which we shot in 2022. And so I've had to keep quiet about it for the last 3 years, but badly, I may add. But it's now up and running in Florida. So yeah, Frank and Alice make an appearance alongside Bill Nye, Brendan Gleeson, and Imelda Staunton and so forth. So it was nice to sort of get back in the old tank top, and nice to be asked. But it's sort of remarkable to me that, because I was 30 when we did that. But it's remarkable to me that this sort of very, very small thing that I did seemed to strike a chord with people at the time, and even now is a thing. And in terms of sort of a similar thing with Captain America, although it's a very, very different character. Adolf Hitler is an unusual part to play. Even me playing an American playing Adolf Hitler in that movie. But yeah, to be part of the Marvel universe very early on is also sort of madness. I'm just I was just a young boy from Cheltenham in Gloucestershire with a dream, knowing nothing, having no connections, but moving to London back in the 90s and sort of taking my shot. And I'm still here, and I'm still taking my shot. And there have been times when it's been, there's a sort of a romanticism about the struggling artist, but when you're down to your last 5p, it's not quite so romantic. Fortunately, I've got about 10p now, so it's fine. But yeah, there's a sort of a romanticism, but I don't think that's particularly helpful. The trick is that you have to, as Tony Hopkins said, just keep going, and try, and you may. The reality is that most actors never make it. Whatever make it means, to me, it means that you don't have to do anything else, and that might be £10,000 a year, that might be £50,000 a year, that might be £10 million a year. However, whatever you success to me is not having to do anything else other than perform, for my living. So I'll keep doing that as long as I possibly can, as long as people are interested, and as long as I can get jobs.
Yeah, I think many people have this question. Were you ever able to keep anything from your sets?
Well, Maddie, I am. This is a thing that people may or may not know, or even care. Is I have a weird obsession with stealing forks.
Oh,
forks? Wait, that's actually quite cool though, because
I'm not going to say I steal phoenixes, but very much forks, as in the utensil, particularly like a tiny cake fork. So over the years, I've purloined several forks from several restaurants and several film sets. So yeah, there's a few sort of. I've got a lot of forks. I don't want to say it. But yeah, I played Tony Blair in a movie a few years ago, but it was very much Irvin Welsh who written the script. Irvin Welsh, of course, famous for writing Trainspotting. So he wrote this film called Creation Stories, which is based on the life of Alan McGee, who founded Creation Records, who discovered Oasis. So his life journey. And Nick Moran was directing it. Nick is a friend of mine, and thought that I might be a good spot to do Tony Blair, but it wasn't a flattering portrayal. But for that movie, I had prosthetic teeth.
Oh gosh!
Oh,
so they were molded. Well, they were molded only to fit me, because he had
that work though. That must have been so uncomfortable, like getting them fixed in your mouth.
Well, they take a mold, and then so it fits, like a glove essentially. So I put them in between takes, and then do my sort of "so nice to see you, Tony Blair. Hello, new labourers at Broadchurch" sort of voice, because it was a sort of a parody of this of Power. And well, at the end of the day, I sort of thought, that nobody else is. These aren't going to fit anybody else. These are bespoke to me. So I thought maybe I'll just pop them in my bag and take them home, because you never know when they're going to be useful. Halloween. So I'm being, my driver's taking me home, and I get a phone call from the makeup team saying, "Oh, have you still got your teeth?" To which I replied, "Oh God, I don't think so. Oh, let me have a look. Oh God, yes, I have. Damn it." So they took them. The driver took them back. At the wrap party, they said, "Oh, we should have let you keep them. We don't need them for anything." great. But I do have so there's a show that I'm in that's coming out in a couple of months on a streaming channel. And I have a prosthetic from that they let me keep. I asked if I could keep it, and they said, yeah, of course. So unless I'm cut from the show, which is always a possibility. But I have that, which is pretty an interesting piece to have.
Do you have a clue to know what it is?
I mean, I'm under an NDA, so probably not. Let's just say it's one of the most popular shows, the biggest, if not the biggest, one of the biggest shows on Netflix.
Wow.
So that could be any number of things. That comes out in a couple of months. So, as I say, unless I'm cut, that's always the danger in this profession. So, but yeah, I have that. But those are mostly. Although my girlfriend was in a film when she was a little girl called Guest House Paradiso, which was a Rick Mayall, Ade Edmondson movie based on the TV show Bottom. You guys might be too young to remember that, I don't know. But she was 8 years old or something like that. But she had a prosthetic made. So in our house we have a prosthetic of me and a prosthetic of her, full head cast of her as a little girl, which is disconcerting. But yeah, the thing, it's not something. I mean, it's good dinner party chat, I suppose.
So we're going to skip to the last question because it's gone really quickly. So, what's the strangest or funniest direction a director's ever given you?
Good question. Well, I did a movie in France a few years ago called Dogman, which is directed by Luc Besson, the incredibly well-known French director who directed The Fifth Element back in the 90s with Bruce Willis, and one of everybody's favorite sci-fis. So yeah, I was fortunate enough to go to France to shoot this movie starring Caleb Landry Jones, who's magnificent in it. But when I had a meeting with Luke when we arrived, me and the guy who was playing my partner, and he hadn't decided how he was going to split the dialogue between our two characters. So he says, "So you both know all of the dialogue for?" Yes, we both know it, because I'd done the work, he'd done the work, and we'd then done the work together. And he said, "And you haven't learnt it in any particular way?" We said, "No." He said, "Because on the day, I might want it red, or I might want it blue." And I thought, yeah, I understand. I'm weirdly, it sounds like a bizarre piece of direction, but to me, it makes complete sense. Because if you get locked into a performance that isn't working, it's very, very difficult to find something else to get out of that performance that you've created. I think that's amusing, but also completely helpful. It's because normally you can go, can you do it a bit quicker? Can you do it a bit slower? Can you, or there might be sort of technical elements to things, or can you do it again but better? Is fun. That's fun. But my favorite one, I might want it red or I might want it blue, and it's funny because I understand it.
Yeah.
So I think that's my favorite one. That's the one that sort of stays in my mind.
Yeah, so that's it for this episode today. Thank you so much for joining us. It was great to dig into your career and to hear some of your brilliant stories from behind the scenes.
If you liked the episode, feel free to follow or share it with some theatre fans. We'll be back soon with another guest and more conversations. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
Bye.
Sorry for the sound issues for today's episode, but hopefully it will be sorted for next episode. Thank you.
Skipping Through Theatre podcast with Nathan and Maddie.